understanding emotional self-sufficiency. And this is going to take us into exercise 28, listing childhood desires and needs. Journal prompt 25, exploring the emotional needs you seek to be filled in relationships, right? And then journal prompt 26, emotional needs in career. So we're going to dig a little bit more on how to become more emotionally self-sufficient through really looking at what we seek in our outer relationships and our outer circumstances. And I know we already touched on this a little bit in the last video, but we're going to continue touching on it now. When it comes to joy, especially, I find that adults forget what really brings them joy, right? And so when we're talking about it, especially if you've been a parent for a long time, you've been focused on other people for so long, you probably have really forgotten yourself and what you want and what you need, right? So looking back on what brought you joy as a child is probably the best place to kind of reconnect and plug into yourself. And you might think that that's a very immature place to look, but it's a very pure place to look too. It's a very pure place to evaluate, because it's before you were really polluted. It's before the world really pushed all of you outside yourself and said, okay, this is the way you need to look. This is the way you need to act. These are the things that you should want. This is what you should aspire to. So we're really innocent in our kind of self understanding and our the purity of self and our wants and needs at that time. They come from a really, really just beautifully self aligned place, right? So getting back in touch with the things that made us smile, that made us happy as a child, can be a beautiful place to start meeting yourself now. And it can also be a beautiful place to heal your inner child. So if as a child you love to draw, right? That's how you love to express yourself, but over time you lost that. You forgot about that. It was so long ago you didn't even remember that you liked that. Drawing is how that younger self probably expressed themselves. That younger self, that while they are healing, expression is the number one key to healing, right? Being heard. Okay. So drawing might be a wonderful avenue for that younger self to be able to express themselves and therefore to heal. I know when I was young, I loved doll houses. I don't know why, but they made me feel happy. And this weekend, I was shopping with my daughter, and we just walked into a toy store for children, younger kids, because she's a teenager. And the dollhouse immediately made me feel so much more connected to myself. It made me feel younger again. It made me feel instant joy, right? So these wants and needs might not be the most mature wants and needs. And I want you to get out of your head. This is not an intellectual exercise. This is an emotional one. I want you to allow yourself to sit with whatever gave you pleasure as a child, right? And to really think about whether or not that still provides pleasure. And if it does, why have you stopped doing those things for yourself? Okay. So this is you looking at all of it, not just from a very high minded point of view of now, but if I have forgotten myself, and most of us have, what was I like before? Really get in touch with that, right? And then I really, again, and I mentioned this in the last video, I really want you to pay attention to relationships. What do you seek to get from relationships in all forms? Right? What do I need from them? If I don't need anything from them, then dope. But I would guess that most people do need something from their relationships, right? They seek to have a need fulfilled, a want fulfilled. I really want you to look at it and ask yourself, are these things that I can give myself? And if I don't have the capacity to give this to myself, then I need to ask myself, why and how do I develop that capacity? How do I give myself that thing that I need? I know for me, I like touch a lot. And it is something that I have really sought out in relationship because I thought I could not give it to myself. But then, and it's vulnerable to share this because certain people are going to look at it a certain way. I really did learn to kiss myself softly, to caress myself softly, to be gentle and loving, to hug myself, to embrace myself. We're taught that that's like weird behavior, but that's because we live within the context of a system that really never wants us to connect thoroughly with ourselves, doesn't want us to be self sufficient, so that we are dependent on this system to then sell us the solution, right? Even if they're selling it to us in, oh, let me teach you how to find your twin flame. Let me be a relationship coach. It's still selling you the solution to the problem that they've created, right? But I want you to kind of reclaim that weirdness then. Be okay with that. My softly kissing myself has felt as good as when anybody else has ever done that to me and for me. So then will I enjoy it from someone else? I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. But in giving it to myself, I don't need to find that from someone. That impulse to have my needs filled by seeking them, that fulfillment externally is just gone. If it shows up externally, it's just a cherry on top of everything, but I don't need it from them, right? So, and that's not to say that there aren't things that you might find in external relationships that you can't fulfill for yourself. There might be those things. I can't imagine what it is, quite honestly. But if there is that thing and it's legitimate, even if it is just sex, like that's not a need that I need to get filled. But if it is for you, then that's legitimate. But think about how that shows up and what parts of that can you give yourself in a real honest way and what parts can't you. And where you can fulfill your needs, you have a responsibility to do so. Look at your friendships and what you're looking at for your friendships. I know for me, friendship has really turned into just being able to be together and enjoy something together. That's the only need that I have that I can't fill for myself, being with somebody else and having a good time together. That's it. There's nothing else from relationship that I cannot give myself, like really, really well. You know, when I look at family relationship, it's very similar to friendship, right? Very, very similar. When I look at the fulfillment that I need in work, it is really that validation. It's that good girl thing that I need fed. And once I understood that, then it didn't matter nearly as much. Now, validation from outside sources is always going to feel good. That's not an issue of it feeling good, even if I know how to validate myself. Of course, it feels good. But do I need it to maintain a positive self image? That's the question. Do these things, am I dependent on these things for my own sense of self and for my identity? Or are these things just nice things when they do show up? Am I demanding these things of others because I'm so starved for them? Or can I just casually enjoy them when they appear, but I know how to give them to myself? But sure, it's nice when someone else does it. I can give myself a foot rub and it's going to feel good. But when someone else does it and I don't have to be engaged and they're caring for me, it feels amazing. It feels amazing. But I don't need someone to do that. I can simply enjoy it. So then I'm never going to demand that of someone because I can simply enjoy it when it's there. I hope you guys fully understand what I'm saying. And if you don't, I do encourage you to drop in and let's talk about it with community, and let's have a broader conversation, so that you can really understand. Maybe you have needs and you don't understand how you can fulfill them, right? Maybe you have wants and you don't understand how you can give that to yourself. We can find a way together. But hopefully you start seeing, maybe just in the small ways, I can love myself, right? I can listen to myself. I can validate myself. I can cheer myself on. There are a lot of things that I can give myself that I'm so used to thinking I must, that they only have value really if I get them from somebody else. And therefore I really can only get them from somebody else, right? That's just not true. Most of the things that we need to thrive in this life, we have the capacity to give ourselves. We are beautifully made whole in that way. It is wonderful when we can give it to each other. It makes everything better for everyone. But that doesn't mean that I need to be dependent on it. And if everyone is being dependent on other people to be fed, then what's happening is no one's being well fed, and everyone is frustrated because they're pouring into others and not getting back out what they need. And because it's probably you, it's probably you too, right? We are walking around so empty but pouring into other people, and we don't understand why we're not getting in return. Stop. Pour into yourself exclusively. Make sure that all your relationships, they take responsibility for themselves in that same way, and then with the extra you have, you give it to one another in this beautiful way. The world becomes whole and happier.